My name never made the slides. Not once. 6 years building the quiet engine under the company's glitter, and every deck said R&D excellence like a memorial to a team that never had faces. It wasn't rage that hooked into me. It was the slow realization that I was being erased in real time, pixel by pixel, while everyone nodded along to buzzwords like they were oxygen. The day my boss, Aaron, laughed, "Dumbass, you should have read the fine print." While firing me on stage, people actually clapped. I didn't stand. I didn't cry. I asked the general counsel to read Clause 4B, and his face went the color of printer paper. We'll get there. But first, you have to understand how quiet theft sounds. It started with an invite that never arrived. Then 2. Then 5. Meetings I'd hosted for years were optimized to include impact stakeholders, which somehow meant everyone but me. My access to the investor dashboard timed out for the first time in years. "Must be a permissions glitch," Aaron said, flashing the smile of a man who thinks charisma is a job description. The same week, a new co-lead materialized. Nate, who once asked me if an API was like a USB for the internet. "You'll love working with him," Aaron said, patting Nate like a golden retriever who dragged in a dead bird. "He brings fresh energy." Fresh energy in our office meant brunch with Aaron and a brand new hoodie with the company logo in a disruptive font. In the first product sync, Nate called the anomaly router the error vacuum. Everyone laughed. I wrote the anomaly router. It kept entire hospitals from misclassifying critical spikes. No one asked me to explain it. There's a kind of power in being overlooked. You can hear the jokes no one edits. You can see the emails no one thinks you'll read. On the way back from a culture council, I heard Aaron tell legal over sparkling water, "We need a symbolic change before the shareholder meeting. A clean narrative, torch passing. Preferably with applause." I didn't pause. I didn't slam doors. I asked legal to pull my file so I could update my estate planning. Estate planning. Such a polite phrase for sharpening knives. I'd negotiated hard in the chaos of our 2019 pivot, when everyone was begging to have their underwater options repriced. People skimmed. I annotated. People rushed. I stayed late. People said, "We'll fix the language later." I insisted on fixing the language now. That's when I tucked a sentence into a bland section with a blander title. Section 4, B, 4 characters and a letter that would one day move mountains. Meanwhile, the PR parade got louder. Aaron posed with clients in front of diagrams I built. Nate demoed my pipeline with the confidence of a man who believes the save button writes the code. I didn't fight the current. I swam under it. I cataloged everything. Git logs with my handle on every core commit. Review notes in Confluence with my initials stamped like fingerprints. Patent drafts with my name first among inventors. Not vanity. Insurance. Corporate warfare isn't fought with feelings. It's fought with paper. Paper decides who gets a farewell cupcake and who gets the company, whether they know it or not. When the first rumor hit my inbox, "Leadership changes at the summit, brace for impact," I wasn't surprised. I was ready. I visited Ray in legal with a coffee and a smile, said I was just clarifying a clause for my attorney. Ray's the gentle kind of GC, the kind who tries not to look bored when people misuse the word indemnify. He opened the PDF. I watched his eyes travel down the paragraph I'd highlighted long ago. He didn't flinch. "Still in effect," he said. "Unusual, but approved." I nodded like he'd told me the weather. Unusual, approved. 2 words that fit in a single breath and could gut evaluation. The next all hands featured a montage. Our logo pirouetting over stock footage of city skylines, slow-motion handshakes, the word agility in a font that looked expensive. Aaron narrated about leaning in and leveling up, which apparently meant I wasn't invited to leadership stand-ups anymore. Nate DM'd me. "Thinking we should rebrand the anomaly stack as Nate AI? Thoughts?" I typed back, "Love it. Make sure to list all contributors." He sent a rocket emoji. I saved the screenshot in a folder named Documentation. Yes, really. I didn't march into HR. HR writes the epilogue. I write the plot. Quietly, I exported every document I had authored, just my work, nothing more, into a neatly labeled archive. I didn't need a crowbar. I needed receipts. I backed up the design schematics, the data maps, the fallback logic, everything I had materially contributed to. Every timestamp was a bead on a wire. That's when Aaron started practicing his smile in the reflective glass outside the boardroom. He loves to wink when he lies. "We're going to honor legacies," he told the camera crew. "We're building the next era." He didn't say my name. He never did. If you don't write your own record, someone will write you out of it. The night before the summit, I stood in my kitchen and practiced 2 sentences. Not a speech. Speeches beg for validation. Sentences close doors. I timed the breath between them. Calm, not dramatic. Precision, not performance. I wasn't preparing to be brave. I was preparing to be inevitable. They thought applause could erase signatures. They mistook silence for surrender. They never checked the fine print. And the fine print had my name on it. The ballroom smelled like burnt coffee and money. Rows of chairs lined up in perfect symmetry. Shareholders in suits too tight for their waistlines, shifting papers and checking phones. Behind the stage, screens looped the same 3 words in corporate blue. Elevate, innovate, accelerate. It was theater, nothing more. And Aaron, my boss, self-declared visionary, was the star. I sat halfway back, not because they'd assigned me there, but because no one had assigned me anywhere. My name wasn't in the program. My badge didn't list a title, just staff. A convenient way of pretending the person who'd built the foundation of the company didn't exist at all. The lights dimmed. The music swelled. Some royalty-free anthem meant to inspire courage in the face of spreadsheets. Then Aaron stepped onto the stage, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened just enough to look approachable. He had perfected this image. Part Silicon Valley disruptor, part motivational speaker. He grinned into the spotlight like it belonged to him. "Today is about the future," he said, voice amplified to the ceiling. "A future powered by agility, vision, and bold leadership." I watched his hands gesture like he was shaping the air into profit. He had never written a line of code, never designed a protocol, never sat in the office past 7 o'clock fixing what junior engineers broke. But he was the one standing up there, selling my architecture like it was his. He launched into the pitch. Graphs appeared on the giant screens. Exponential growth curves, revenue forecasts, testimonials. The audience clapped at each pause, trained like seals. Then came the moment. His smile widened, and his voice dropped into what he thought was gravitas. "Every new chapter requires us to honor the past while embracing change. And today, we make that change." He turned toward me, hand extended like he was a king offering mercy. "We are saying farewell to one of our longest-serving contributors. Sarah, please stand." The spotlight swung. 100 eyes turned. Some sympathetic, most indifferent. A few confused. They hadn't realized I was still here. The applause started polite, then picked up as a few employees forced it louder. I stayed seated. Aaron chuckled, leaning into the microphone. "Come on, Sarah, stand and take a bow. You've done well, but it's time to let the next generation lead. Don't worry, we'll carry your legacy forward." Then he said it. "Dumbass, you should have read the fine print." He thought it was clever. A joke. The crowd laughed nervously, unsure if they were supposed to. My chair didn't move. My hands stayed folded in my lap. I looked up, calm, steady. "Before I go," I said, my voice cutting through the room without effort. "May I ask legal to read Section 4B of my employment agreement into the record?" The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was absolute. Ray, the general counsel, sat in the front row, already pale from too much stage lighting. His brow furrowed. He opened his laptop with slow fingers. The applause had died mid-clap. Aaron shifted on stage, caught off guard. This isn't the time, Sarah, he said, laughing thinly. We're celebrating. Let's not drag contracts into this, I repeated myself. Not louder, not sharper, just final. Section 4B, it's one paragraph. Please read it. Ray cleared his throat. His voice, usually soft, echoed against the microphones. Section 4. B. Upon termination without cause, all intellectual property authored or materially contributed to by the employee shall revert to said employee, including but not limited to source code, technical diagrams, design schematics, and related documentation. Murmurs rippled through the room like a spark across dry leaves. A coffee cup slipped from someone's hand and hit the carpet with a dull thud. Aaron laughed again, but the sound cracked at the edges. This is nonsense. It's symbolic. Legal boilerplate. Ray's eyes stayed glued to his screen. He scrolled, lips pressed thin. It's signed, he said finally, voice quiet but carrying. Countersigned. Effective. The shareholders shifted in their seats. Phones buzzed. A few whispered, "Is this enforceable?" I sat still. Aaron's face tightened, but he pressed forward. This company was built by a team. Not one person. We own this product. We own it. Ray shook his head slightly. The contracts don't reference ownership by committee. They reference authorship, and every record lists Sarah as principal architect. The room tilted. I could feel it. The sudden weight of realization pressing down on every shareholder, every investor. Years of valuations, projections, IPO talk, balanced on work they no longer owned. Aaron turned back to me, smile gone. We can negotiate. Recognition, equity, whatever you want. Let's be reasonable. I met his eyes. Steady. You fired me. Without cause. On stage. It's absolute. That word landed heavier than any shout could have. The screens behind him flickered. The system dashboard glitched, red text flashing across what had been a clean performance metric slide. Someone near the front gasped. A tech lead pulled out his laptop, fingers trembling as he typed. Victor, the CTO, muttered under his breath, "We've lost back-end access." Then, louder, to no one in particular, she revoked the tokens. Jesus Christ. The murmurs grew into chaos. Investors stood, calling lawyers. Someone whispered, SEC implications. Another said, material IP loss. The sound of panic is unmistakable. Papers shuffling, chairs scraping, voices overlapping. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. I had already won. Aaron gripped the microphone like it might anchor him, but his voice cracked. This isn't final. We'll fix it. We'll challenge it in court. Ray finally looked up, his face drained. It's final. She owns it. The applause was gone. The spotlight still burned, but the stage belonged to me now, without me even leaving my chair. The noise didn't end so much as it thinned out, like oxygen leaving a room. People were still talking, but softer, almost careful, as if the microphones could turn on them next. I stayed seated until the lights brightened, and the stage manager started whispering into a headset like a person trying to hold back a leak with her hands. Then I stood, picked up my bag, and walked toward the side aisle. A few engineers moved aside before I reached them. Not out of respect, out of uncertainty. I used to be the person they messaged at 1:13 a.m. when production threw a tantrum. Now, they didn't know if saying hi to me counted as taking a side. I didn't help them. I just nodded and kept moving. Near the exit, I passed Victor, our CTO, hunched over a laptop balanced on a stack of investor packets. He didn't look up. His fingers were frantic, then still, then frantic again. We're freezing all use of her authored components until we understand exposure. Someone from legal said over his shoulder. Do not deploy. Do not present. Do not demo. Victor swallowed. The screen reflected in his glasses made his eyes look like alarm lights. Outside the ballroom, the hallway felt colder. The hotel had overcorrected the temperature. a predictable decision in a building where the carpets cost more than most cars. Two board members stood by a potted plant, whispering with an urgency that made the leaves tremble. One said injunction, the other said valuation. Both said, "How did we miss this?" without moving their mouths. Ray found me near the elevators. His tie was crooked. He looked like a man who had read a sentence he wished he'd never learned to pronounce. "Sarah," he said, careful, almost gentle. "I need to confirm a few things." "Of course," I said, "but not here." We stepped into a small conference room with a table that tried to look handcrafted. He closed the door, sat, opened his laptop like it might bite him. "You negotiated 4B during the 2019 restructuring," he said. "No amendments, no carve-outs, no superseding terms. Correct?" "Correct. Your authorship is documented. Commits, design docs, filing drafts, the works." "Yes." He nodded once as if that settled gravity. "I've advised the executive team to suspend use of anything you authored until we secure a licensing arrangement. Short term, that means taking product offline. Long term, it means we talk. Today isn't good," I said. "You terminated me without cause. That triggers the reversion. Any use now is infringement." He rubbed his forehead. "I know." "You'll also want to notify partners," I added. "Their integrations reference my modules. Better they hear from you than from a cease and desist." He winced, then typed something into an email draft with the kind of focus people reserve for diffusing bombs. When he looked up, his expression had shifted from strained to almost grateful. "Thank you for not gloating." "I'm not here for theater," I said. "I'm here for accuracy." He nodded again. "I'll prepare a proposal." "We'll be in touch." We stood. He offered a hand, then thought better of it, then offered it anyway. I shook it briefly and left. In the lobby, I sat on the edge of a marble planter and opened my phone. Messages had stacked up in messy layers. A former lead pinged me 3 words. Holy. Absolute. Legend I didn't answer. A junior engineer I'd mentored wrote, "Are we out of jobs?" I replied, "Not if your leadership makes adult decisions." She sent back a single tear emoji, then, "Thank you." I muted the thread. I ordered a car. While I waited, I looked up at the hotel's glass facade. The reflection threw back a version of the city that looked clean and orderly. It wasn't. Nothing real is. That's the lie that gets people to sign whatever is handed to them. That's the lie that kept my name off slides and my work under other people's voices. In the car, the driver asked if I'd been at the conference. I said yes. He asked if it went well. I said, "It ended, honestly." He laughed like I'd made a joke and focused on merging. At home, I changed out of the dress I'd chosen because it had pockets deep enough to hold a USB drive. I made tea. I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop, the personal one, the one with the sticker that says document everything. The folder I'd built over the last year sat exactly where I left it. Timestamps, drafts, commit hashes, review threads, PDF exports, receipts, all of them. The kind that doesn't get louder when you shout, just heavier when you look. An email slid in from an investor I barely knew, a man who always managed to be near cameras. "If you're taking meetings," he wrote, "we'd love to talk." I archived it. Another from a hospital vendor. "We rely on your anomaly router for our nightly batch. Should we pause?" I wrote back. "Contact your legal. Request assurance of licensed use. If they don't have it, pause." It wasn't revenge. It was responsible. Then Aaron called. His name lit the screen with a familiarity that felt like an allergy flare. I let it ring out. He called again. On the 3rd try, I picked up. "Sarah," he said, breathless, "we can fix this." I said some things I shouldn't. "You fired me in public." I misspoke. "We're prepared to offer recognition. A bonus, maybe a title." "You can't buy back authorship." I said, "You can license it." or you can stop using it. You'll kill the company, he said, and the mask fell just enough for the fear to show. Think about the team. I am thinking about them. They deserve leadership that reads. He exhaled, long and loud, like a man trying to blow out a fire with hope. Our PR is drafting a statement. Can we say you're moving on amicably? You can say whatever you want, I said, but say it with a license agreement attached. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Small. I didn't think you'd actually do it. I wrote it down so I wouldn't have to. After we hung up, I sent one email, a short plain note to Ray. Subject line, next steps, 3 sentences. I listed a timeline for a temporary license, the rate for an interim period, and a reminder that continued use without agreement would require me to protect my rights. No threats, just terms. I closed the laptop and let the kettle whistle itself out. In the quiet, I finally felt tired. Not triumphant, not vindicated. Tired. 6 years had condensed into a single paragraph and the discipline to say it out loud. People call that courage. It isn't. It's paperwork. The morning after the shareholder summit, my inbox looked like a crime scene. Dozens of unread emails, half of them flagged urgent, the other half full of words like clarification, licensing, and exposure. I brewed coffee strong enough to sting my eyes and opened the first one. It was from a hospital client. Our integration is throwing errors. Legal says we can't deploy until contracts are cleared. We need guidance. I read it twice, then close the laptop. That was the new reality. Everything waited on me. For years, I was told my work was invisible, replaceable, the scaffolding no one noticed. Now, that scaffolding was missing, and the building leaned without it. My phone buzzed. A message from Maya, one of the engineers I'd mentored when she was fresh out of college. They're panicking. Half the team is locked out of systems. Can you talk? I typed back, I can't step in. You know why, but you'll be okay. You always were. Her reply was instant. Not without you. I let the screen go dark. I couldn't fix everything for them. That was the hardest part. Reminding myself that protecting my work didn't mean carrying the company on my back anymore. Around noon, Ray, the general counsel, called. His tone was steady, professional, but edged with exhaustion. Sarah, we need to move fast. The board wants a licensing proposal on their desks by tomorrow morning. If we don't, they'll consider an injunction, and I'd rather not waste months in litigation. Can you meet? I agreed, but only on neutral ground. A cafe downtown with unreliable Wi-Fi and strong espresso. When I arrived, he was already there, tie loosened, laptop open but untouched. He looked up like a man hoping for mercy. Thank you for coming, he said. I'm not here to fight, I replied, sitting down. But I'm not here to give anything away either. He nodded. We're clear on ownership. You negotiated it, you documented it, and the board confirmed it last night. No one's contesting that. But we need terms. I slid a folder across the table. Paper, not digital. Short-term license for critical clients. 90 days. After that, renegotiation or rebuild from scratch. Rates are here. He flipped through the pages, lips tightening as he read. These numbers are high. They're market, I said. Maybe higher than you're used to paying internally, but you don't own it internally anymore. You're a client now. His hands stilled on the folder. He didn't argue. He just closed it slowly and said, I'll take this to the board. We drank our coffee in silence after that. When I left, I felt something I hadn't in years. Air that actually reached my lungs. That evening, Aaron called again. I let it go to voicemail. His message was longer this time, almost rambling. He talked about legacy, about how much he'd valued my contributions, how things had gotten miscommunicated. Then his voice dropped, low and sharp. Don't ruin us, Sarah. Think about the people depending on this company. I replayed that line twice. Don't ruin us. As if I had swung the axe. as if I hadn't spent 6 years building the tree while he carved his initials into it. I opened my laptop and scrolled through the documentation again. Not because I doubted myself, but because I needed to feel the weight of it. Git logs with my initials on every commit. Patent drafts with my name listed first. Architecture diagrams signed and dated. Pages and pages of revision notes in my handwriting. It was overwhelming, almost too much. But it was mine. Every line a fingerprint. The next day, the board met me in a small conference room at their downtown office. No cameras, no applause, no stage lights. Just a long table, a row of tired faces, and Ray at the end with my folder. One of the older board members cleared his throat. "Sarah, we've reviewed your proposal. 90 days at these rates is disruptive. But litigation is worse. We're prepared to accept Aaron was there too, sitting stiffly at the far end. He didn't speak until the papers were signed. Then he leaned forward, voice quiet enough that only I could hear. You'll regret this. Burning bridges never ends well. I looked at him, steady. I didn't burn it, Aaron. You set the match. I just made sure it landed where it belonged. For once, he had no reply. That night, I walked home instead of taking a car. The city lights were sharp, the air brisk. Every step felt like a chapter turning, not because I had destroyed something, but because I had protected what was already mine. People think revenge feels like fireworks. It doesn't. It feels like paperwork signed in silence. It feels like leaving a room knowing the record finally matches the truth. And for the first time in years, I slept without dreaming about being erased. 90 days looks long on paper and short in real life. Day one after the license, the company issued a statement with soft words and hard omissions. Transition, strategic clarity, mutual respect. My name appeared once, spelled correctly, followed by former. That was new. Accuracy in public, at least for a sentence. The money hit my account the next morning. First installment for the temporary license. Clean, clinical, and exactly on time. Ray sent a brief confirmation and a list of dates for joint reviews. We would meet weekly to validate the scope of what they could legally touch, what they had to quarantine, and what they needed to rebuild. The calls were quiet. No one tried to charm their way out of language anymore. We talked in definitions and change logs. It suited me. Inside the company, the visible fallout wasn't fireworks. It was smaller. The product page quietly updated to limited availability. The press tour postponed. A roadmap slide with the word re-architecture where next gen used to be. I heard through Maya that Aaron had stepped back from day-to-day operations to focus on vision, which is what companies say when the board asks someone to stop touching the controls. Victor stayed. He was too entangled to be replaced quickly. The team split into two groups. One to keep the licensed components running for critical clients, another to start a parallel stack that didn't use any of my work. They called it Greenfield. It was really brownfield with better lighting. Maya texted me after her first week on the rebuild. It's slower than anyone admits. But it's clean. We're documenting from day one I sent a thumbs up and nothing else. She didn't need me to narrate her competence. She'd always had it. I met with 3 companies that month. Not because I needed a job. The license gave me space. But there's a difference between leaving and landing. The first 2 slid glossy slides across tables and described cultures that sounded suspiciously like mine had on its best day. I passed on both. The third invited me to a conference room with no pitch deck and asked practical questions. How do you structure code ownership to survive reorgs? What does healthy authorship credit look like? What would you refuse to compromise? I liked that last one. I answered carefully. They listened without blinking. I didn't say yes that day, but I stopped looking. Week 5, a hospital CIO asked to speak with me directly. Their overnight batch had stabilized under the license, but they were nervous about the next quarter. Is it safe to keep building on this? He asked. Honest, plain. I told him the truth. Safe for now if they follow the agreement. Safe for long-term if they migrate to a stack their leadership understands. He sighed. That's what I thought. He thanked me for answering without selling him anything. Aaron called once more, mid-license. He didn't leave a message. I didn't call back. There are some conversations that only exist to reopen doors you've already closed. A week later, HR sent a form asking for my preferred wording on an exit announcement. I replied with one sentence. Sarah served as principal architect for the enterprise platform from 2018 to 2024. They published it as written. Another small correction to the record. At home, my life got quieter in ways I didn't expect. No more 11:37 p.m. Quick questions? No more waking up to 12 Slack pings and an apology. I started running in the mornings. The park smelled like wet grass and leaf mold and not at all like a server room. I found myself thinking in terms of architecture less and time more. It didn't make me sentimental. It just gave me space to put things where they belonged. On the final week of the license, Ray and I met in person. No entourage. Just two people who had both spent a year living inside one paragraph and were finally stepping out of it. We're going to extend the license for 30 days, he said, handing me a light packet. The rebuild is real but not ready. We'd prefer not to rush cutovers for the hospitals. I read the terms. Fair, narrow, specific. 30 days, I said, tapping the date. No more. He nodded. No more. He hesitated at the door. For what it's worth, Sarah, this changed how we draft employment agreements, how we read them too. It should, I said. That's the whole point. He smiled without showing teeth and left. I signed the extension and walked 3 blocks to the office of the third company, the one that asked about refusal points. They hadn't decorated the lobby to look like the internet. No neon verbs on walls. Just books, real ones, and a pot of coffee that tasted like someone cared. The VP of product met me at the door and didn't pretend we'd always known each other. We've been building slowly, he said. On purpose. We want ownership to mean responsibility, not possession. What would my title be? I asked. Name it, he said. Then write what it means. I took a breath and named something small on purpose. Principal engineer. No chiefs, no global, no anything you can't print on a card without rolling your eyes. He nodded like I'd passed a test he hoped I'd pass. We talked about process, authorship, credit, and what to do when people forget what those words mean. I didn't say yes in the room. I waited until I was outside in the clean air, then emailed 3 words. I'm coming Monday. The license ended exactly 30 days later. The company cut over clients to their new stack. It was slower at first, and it didn't have the features I'd polished into muscle memory. But it was theirs, and they could say that honestly. Maya sent me a photo of her team eating bad cake in a good mood. The caption, no more borrowed parts. I wished them well and meant it. If there's a lesson to drag into the light, it's not that fine print saves you, or that the law will always be fair, or that a single clause can fix a broken culture. It won't. The lesson is simpler and harder. Put your name on your work, read what you sign, and keep your proof. People will call that combative. It isn't. It's maintenance. It's the boundary that lets you build without being erased. When people ask me what revenge felt like, I tell them it never did. What I felt was relief. The quiet kind that arrives when the record finally matches the truth. The applause ended. The paperwork stayed. And I kept walking.